Middleman Villamor, tukoy na kung ano ang totoong dahilan sa kanyang pagkasawi. Nakitaan umano ng history ng asphyxia mula sa plastic bag suffocation ang nasawing New Bilibid prison inmate na si June Villamor, na umano'y middleman sa kasong pagpaslang kay Percy Lapid. Ayon sa isinagawang pangalawang autopsy ni Dr. Raquel Fortun, isang forensic pathologist, sinabi nito na kabilang sa kanyang findings ay ang plastic bag suffocation o ang paggamit ng plastic bag sa ulo na naging dahilan para hindi makahinga ang naturang inmate. Sa naganap na pagpupulong, humarap din si Justice Secretary Remulla kasama si Dr. Fortun at inihayag ang resulta ng nasabing autopsy. Sinabi naman ni Remulla na pinagplanuhan umano ang pagpapatumba ng naturang tinaguriang middleman na si Villamor. Kaya naman, hiniling ni Sec. Remulla kay Dr. Fortun na magsagawa ng pangalawang autopsy batay na rin sa kahilingan ng pamilya ni Percy o Percival Mabasa. Tinukoy naman sa report ni Fortun na merong impormasyon na binigay si Villamor nang bago ito mawala ay natatakot siya sa kanyang buhay sa loob ng NBP. Una rito, sinabi pa ni Remulla na may 7 tao ang nasa ilalim ng kanilang kustodiya na iniimbestigahan na posibleng may kinalaman umano sa pagkawala ni Villamor.
Sir, can we say po na posible bang mas gumulo yung investigation or did this re-autopsy make the investigation clear?
I think it made everything clearer. It gives you a better picture of what transpires inside. The finding of methamphetamine, I think, is very significant. That was not there in the picture before. Because you draw a picture of what's happening inside that makes you go to conclude or go to your several conclusions. Wala akong nakikita inconsistency. I think that these are developments that happened after, when the information was processed after. And this is the information that you do not keep from any doctor. Hindi mo itatago sa kanila yan tapos you tell them to go blind. You inform them of what you know. That's the first basic rule, so that they're guided while they're doing the examination. Ang problema kasi dyan, the first time that it was examined, wala pa yung dying declaration. It was not yet there. The dying declaration came in Thursday already after that autopsy of the NBI was conducted. Maraming factor na hindi po alam ng NBI nung kinonduct nila yung autopsy. And this time, yun nga, because of the experience of Dr. Fortun, I think it's more extensive. But maybe she has more ways of arriving at conclusions when she examines them. She will not be the chairman of the Department of Pathology of the University of the Philippines if she did not know enough of her craft. I think it's very significant.
Sir,
the level of expertise.
Sir, last question na po from me. Sir, you mentioned nga yung presence ng methamphetamine. Sir, will we be launching a separate investigation sa kung ano yung nangyayari sa NBP? Kasi you mentioned it.
Yes, sabi ko nga, I will furnish a copy to the acting Bureau Director. So he will be guided by what we find inside. Pati yung mga affidavits na nakuha na namin, bibigyan namin ng kopya si acting Bureau Director para makita kung anong direksyon ang dapat gawin sa pagpapatakbo ng National Bilibid Prisons.
Hi sir, good morning. Ma'am Gonzalez from JB po. Sir, Dr. Fortun mentioned earlier na there was an additional information of how he died. Pwede po ba natin sabihin kung sino po yung nagbigay ng information na yun? Was it the PDL? Was it an official?
PDL.
A PDL po?
Yes. And this is a sworn statement. We're not talking about kwento. We're talking about a sworn statement.
Sir, now that we've kind of established that there was foul play dahil nga po yung plastic bag, ganyan, sir, can we say na ito ay parang paraan para patahimikin si June Villamor with regards to the Percy Lapid case? I know that there are 2 separate cases.
Yes. Kaya nga, we're talking about 2 deaths already. We're not just talking about Percy Lapid. But it will bolster the whole theory. They're all tied together. Magkakasama po lahat yung mga facts na yan.
Sir, last na lang po. Sir, merong binanggit po yung Mabasa family that they have been receiving death threats as well. Meron na po ba silang hiniling sa inyo na karagdagang...
I spoke to Roy Mabasa this morning and he's in contact with witness protection. And we're providing security for Roy and the Mabasa family.
Sir, last na lang papahabol. Sir, nagre-request po sila na ipatrace yung mga tawag at yung mga text sa Mabasa family.
Yes. Sa Mabasa family, I have to get their numbers, and I will have the NBI do that. We have the expertise to trace all of this information.
Thank you, sir. Sir, last lang, dahil po tapos na yung second autopsy, ipapauwi po ba yung katawan ni June Villamor sa kanyang pamilya? Maisasama ba yung kanyang mga kapatid? Saan na po yung kanyang katawan bale ngayon?
We will first arrange a viewing for one from the body to Leyte. I've spoken to them lengthily about this. May isang witness lang na ayoko talagang pauwiin pa kasi kailangan siya na ma-secure. And we will give the proper burial to John Villamor, and we will assist them, the whole family, in this matter. Kasama po yan sa trabaho natin to make sure that things are done properly.
Secretary si Johnson po ulit from ABS. Sir, klaruhin ko lang para magtugma yung figures po natin. Yung binanggit po ninyo na 7 taong in custody, sila po ba yung 5 nasa NBI?
Iba pa yun.
Iba pa.
Iba pa to.
So ilan po lahat?
Isang development. So magiging 11 na sila, 12. 12 na.
Pwede pong pa.
Magiging 12 na sila sa NBI after we get, hindi pa natin dinadala sa NBI yung 7. They're almost there.
They're in Bilibid pa?
Basta they're almost in NBI.
Oo. At for the record lang, sir, yung mastermind, may idea na po tayo without naming names.
I will let the NBI stitch together. It's not anymore my call. I am not the primary investigator. I just made the investigation possible to be conducted by both the NBI and the PNP together.
Well, my involvement here started on social media, where people usually ask me what I think of some controversial death. But formally, I was asked by Secretary Remulla, I think on a Monday, we had a phone call, and I told him, yes, it can be done, what it takes. And first and foremost, I asked for an authorization because the Mabasa family themselves cannot actually, that's not what I need if I'm going to ask for a consent. And that was arranged. And Secretary Remulla had been very transparent about my needs and my questions. And in fact, if not for the information I got from DOJ's investigation, then I would not have gone this far because I was prepared to just say this much. Okay, and I'll explain to you what has transpired. Alright, so basically, the body was brought to us finally on October 25 in the afternoon. But then at that time, I did not have that authorization letter yet. I did not want to open up the body without it. NBI went. So the body was brought to us by the Bureau of Corrections officials and turned over properly and so on. We signed for it. And then shortly after, NBI sent apparently a team to observe. But I said, no, I'm not going to examine the body yet. And I was also hesitant because they came with a full team of 2 doctors and about 3 others, including a videographer. You know, we do not do autopsies like that. And I know that they had already seen the body themselves, so what's the point? We document our findings. Alright, so anyway, I coordinated with Dr. Maria Cecilia Lim, also a forensic pathologist, and the vice chair of the Department of Pathology. It's at PGH, it's the UP College of Medicine. So also in the same department, and I requested that she be the one to be there. NBI also consults her. So we scheduled the actual autopsy the following day in the morning. So this would be October 26. And it took us that whole morning. We finished by 11:30. And the body was well preserved, post-autopsy, post-embalmed. The embalming was good. We were expecting that formalin fumes would be overwhelming. We encountered that a lot. But this time around, the body was right for examination. Okay? And so we documented everything, the embalming sites, the autopsy incisions, and all the details are in the report. Okay, that's why it's 6 pages long. It's very much detailed. I'll just focus on the front sheet where it has the pathologic diagnosis and what we call the opinion. All right? And so to summarize, the most pertinent findings would be, number 1, history of asphyxia by plastic bag suffocation. 2, pulmonary congestion, edema, and hemorrhages. 3, schistosomiasis of the liver. It's an incidental finding. It's a parasitic infection. I believe he comes from Leyte, Samar area, and that's kind of endemic in that area. Number 4, status post-autopsy. Number 5, status post-embalming. Number 6, evidence of medical intervention consisting of a needle puncture mark on the dorsal right hand. Well, I saw this on, zooming in on the pictures, and I'm not too sure at this point if the Bugor Hospital did this, because sometimes when you bring bodies to the hospital, they automatically try and look for a vein there. I don't have records of what they did, what they saw in that hospital, but this is not really that significant. All right, and then I have here an opinion, and it reads, this is the case of a 42-year-old male who was an inmate incarcerated at the New Bilibid prison when he was allegedly found unresponsive and pronounced dead at the NBP hospital on October 18, 2022. The cause of death was certified as, in quotation marks, dead on arrival, undetermined, for autopsy. The embalmed remains were autopsied on October 20, 2022 by the National Bureau of Investigation. A second autopsy was conducted on October 26, 2022. There is information that he expressed fear for his life shortly before his demise, and that he died from suffocation by means of a plastic bag over his head. The autopsy findings showed no gross morphologic cause of death, and this is consistent with the reported asphyxia. Limitations were encountered in the examination due to the postmortem interval, the previous embalming, and autopsy. Preliminary urine toxicology showed methamphetamine. Based on available information regarding the circumstances surrounding death, the manner is homicide. Okay, so when I was constantly discussing the case with Secretary Remulla, and at first I said I did not find anything, meaning he was not sick of something serious, no significant injuries also. So external and internal findings were negative, and at first I was about to say that. That's it. There's no cause of death, and the manner would be classified as what we call undetermined. However, information trickled in. I noted it here, and this is very important, that he had an inkling that he was in danger, and true enough, shortly after, he died. And this sense, this feeling of impending death actually was transmitted to someone, and this information is credible. So I had to consider that. So I was about to write as manner of death, probable homicide. However, again, additional information was that there's an account of someone now explaining how he died. And I remember Secretary Remulla asking me, plastic bag? And I said, puede. Actually, pwede. So when you look at a case like this, it's totality of evidence. When I refer to manner, it is how the person died. Cause would be why. Okay? And to say how, you have to look at everything, including the circumstances. And I really had to factor in the two things, that he knew he was about to die, and he did. And two, that someone actually offered an explanation of, cause. And taking everything into consideration, it is consistent. No morphologic findings. And yes, putting a plastic bag over one's head, it can be very effective. Questions?
We're opening the floor to questions, and I will explain something later again after the questions are through.
Hello. Good morning, Secretary. Isa Umali po from PCWB. Dahil po ba sa findings ni Dr. Fortune, di ba dati po nabanggit nyo may possibility of murder yung nangyari kay June Villamor. Ganun na rin po ba yung nakikita nyo ngayon? Possible murder case na po ba ito?
We are now holding in custody in custody na ngayon ang 7 tao na marahil may kasama-sama, may alam sa nangyari sa kanya, at ito po ay ating hinahawakan na ngayon. Hindi pa sila tinatanong, ngunit aalamin natin. 7 tao po ito na ating tatanungin tungkol sa bagay na ito. Dahil nga sa mga investigasyon na nagaganap na huling araw, marami na ho tayo nakakausap, marami na ho nagpapaliwanag, at may 7 pa hong tao tayong kinuha na maaring ito na ang magpapaliwanag at magtuturo na ang pagkamatay ni June Villamor ay isang hindi po aksidente, hindi po atake na natural, ngunit isa pong pinagplanuhang kamatayan. Kaya ito po ay malinaw na malinaw po ngayon. Kaya kakausapin po namin yung 7 tao.
Secretary, good morning. Si Johnson po from ABS-CBN. Secretary and kay Dr. Fortune, kung ganun po na magkaiba yung result dun sa autopsy ng NBI at sa findings po ni Dr. Fortune, will this not create reasonable doubt dun sa criminal case against the perpetrators?
I'm not really sure na magkaiba. I have not actually seen the report of NBI. As I kept saying earlier, what they submitted was very sketchy, and it was more of an internal office memo. It's not a technical autopsy report. I'm not sure kung magkaiba. Let me just comment that it, for them to have seen the body earlier, of course, nagkaroon ng changes. But at the same time, I appreciate the fact that may nakita pa ako. And that's why sa akin kasi is really show me the body. And like for instance, yung ihi na nakuha, the bladder was intact, surprisingly. And it contained a lot of urine. Probably, sa amin, mga 40 ml. Dami nun hindi ko alam kung ano yung nakuha ng NBI because I was told that, kasi ang tanong ko, hindi niya ba nakita to? Kasama yan sa complete autopsy Ang sabi sa akin, they aspirated daw. But really, what we do is we take out the bladder, everything there, the prostate, the testes. That is how you do a complete autopsy. There's another potential source of toxicology samples, the stomach. Again, to my disadvantage, it's not there anymore. And apparently, they took out the entire stomach. So, let's wait. I don't know when they're going to release their findings, if they're still doing histopathology as well, and toxicology.
Anyway, the presence of methamphetamine is another factor that probably we should note. Yung rumors na meron talagang shabu sa loob ng bilibid, I think, is confirmed by the fact that the person who died had shabu or methamphetamine in his system. I think it's a very important finding that was not present in the first report. And this, actually, we are still planning to have a second laboratory examine the urine that is there. Kasi marami naman siya. I think that the exam for drugs or for reactions no, sa urine did not exhaust all the possible material that we can have examined by a second laboratory in cases that in case Dr. Fortun wants to search for more clues in the urine, and we're willing to do that, and we will just look for the laboratory that can process it.
Secretary, follow-up lang po. Yung binanggit po ninyo na in custody yung 7 na maaaring makatulong dun sa investigation, sila ba yung magtuturo doon sa mastermind or isa sa kanila yung posibleng mastermind?
Ano, di ba? We have the Percy Lapid case and the John Villamor case. Nag-intersect yung dalawa because John Villamor was an alleged co-conspirator in the death of Percy Lapid. But because John Villamor died also, then it's another case in itself. I think that we should not forget that we're not talking about a single person dying, but 2 persons dying. And yung mahalaga lang sa 7 na in custody ngayon is that they can validate that June Villamor was actually killed. There's nothing inconsistent with the findings of Dr. Fortun or the NBI on this matter. I believe, no? Wala naman, no? No inconsistency, because not being apparent doesn't mean it didn't happen. I think we should be clear about that. Kaya, we're now in the last phase, I believe, of the investigation. We will evaluate again all the statements. I want the NBI to speak to the gunman again, because they have not examined the gunman, the alleged gunman or the confessed gunman, and the other person in custody in the PNP Custodial Center. And we intend to do this in the next few days so that we can complete the story that we have to stitch together to know what really happened. No? We can operate on the basis of the statement made by the confessed gunman, but I think that there are other questions that we have to ask about this matter. Of course, we're awaiting the report of the Anti-Money Laundering Council on the bank account. There are other factors we're trying to get in to the front so that we can examine them. But this case is almost over. I mean, the investigation is almost over. It's a matter of filing the cases and probably being able to identify masterminds in this case. We are saying masterminds because in the plural, because we are going out 2 persons of interest as masterminds, but we cannot say their names now because we have to determine everything, and we don't want to violate any rights of anybody. We're just here to make sure that we conduct everything in accordance with law.
Para naman sa inyo, ano naman ang masasabi nyo tungkol dito? Magkomento lamang sa baba at huwag kalimutang mag-subscribe para updated ka sa mga maiinit na balita sa Pilipinas. Maraming salamat sa panonood.